بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وارزقنا متابعته بالأقوال والأفعال والأحوال أما بعد. Last week we took 5 masail, and to comprehend 5 masail a week in depth, like most of the masail that we study, that's something Tullab al-Ilm should be proud of and commended for. And that's one of several reasons that the classes may be at times shorter. One of our teachers who used to go into detail wouldn't give us more than 3 masail a week for the first year or so that we studied with him. So alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for that. The masail that we took last week were as follows. They pertained, we continued on the term of satir, which means covering. And we took the mas'ala of covering the foot and that the socks or khuf don't have any holes in them, and whether it's permissible to wipe on socks or khufs that have holes in them. Then the next mas'ala that we took is whether it's permissible to wipe over thin and see-through socks or khufs. Then we took the mas'ala of whether they have to be firm and stable on their own. And then we took the mas'ala of wiping over the shoes, and then the mas'ala of wiping over the socks. There's some more masail pertaining to a khuf or socks that are essential, yet the author's statements in the book didn't encompass them. And they need to be mentioned for Tullab al-Ilm, and they're practical for everyone. Someone may say, who even wears khuf these days? But then who doesn't wear socks these days? So most of what we took applies to both. The next mas'ala that we're going to start on today is that do you wipe under the khuf, the under part of the socks, or the upper part, or both? The first opinion is the opinion of Shafi'iyya and Malikiyya. In Muwatta Malik and in Al-Mudawwana Al-Kubra, Imam Malik said you must wipe over the top of the foot, and to them that's a must, the top. But it's also sunnah to wipe the under part of the khuf or the socks. In Al-Hawi Al-Kabir, which is on the madhab of Shafi'i, Shafi'i stated similar or the same opinion. They also mentioned that it was the opinion of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anh, and Zuhri rahimahullah ta'ala, and some other ulama. So their opinion is to wipe over the upper part of the khuf or socks and the bottom. If you wipe the bottom alone, it's not sufficient. And if you wipe the top alone, it's sufficient. But they also recommended that you also wipe the bottom as well. In Al-Mudawwana, Imam Malik rahimahullah stated that if one only wipes the top part, the upper part, and makes salah, and the salah time has not lapsed, he should go redo the wudu in salah. However, if the salah time has lapsed, he doesn't need to do anything. That's according to Imam Malik or the Malikiyya. Ibn Hazm rahimahullah ta'ala in Al-Muhalla responded to that by basically saying it makes no sense. I'm rewording it. Basically saying it makes no sense to require them to repeat the salah only if the salah time has not lapsed. He said if one performed the tahara properly, they don't need to repeat anything. And if you consider that his wudu wasn't proper due to him not wiping the bottom of his foot, the socks, it makes no sense to only require that he repeats it if the salah time hasn't lapsed. The second opinion is mentioned in At-Tabsira by Abu al-Hasan al-Lakhmi. He related that Abdullah ibn Nafi', who was a close personal student of Imam Malik, that you have to wipe the top and the bottom together. The top of the socks and the bottom together. His reasoning is wiping socks or khuf takes the place of washing the foot. And in washing you must wash the entire foot. And likewise, he said, in wiping, it must encompass the entire foot. The third opinion is in Uyun al-Adillah and in Al-Muntaqa and Bidayat al-Mujtahid, that Abu Amr Ashhab ibn Ibrahim, which is a student of Imam Malik, he said you must wipe either the top or the bottom. Whichever one you do is sufficient. Notice those first three opinions. Of course, the first one is shared also by Shafi'i, but the three opinions are by Imam Malik. The second one's by one of his top students, and the third that deferred also is by one of his top students. So the fourth opinion is the Hanafiya and the Hanabila and the Zahiriyya. They said wiping over the top is required and wiping the bottom is not fard, nor sunnah, nor mustahab. Ibn al-Qayyim adopted this and attributed this opinion to Urwa and Ata and Al-Hasan al-Basri and Nakha'i, Al-Thawri and Ibn al-Mundhir and Al-Awza'i and Ishaq ibn Rahawayh and other ulama. What's their proof on this? Their proof is, number one, is that famous narration by Ali radiallahu anh, that's in Musnad Ahmad, and another narration in similar in meaning in Sunan Abu Dawud. لو كان الدين بالرأي لكان أسفل الخف أولى بالمسح من أعلاه. وقد رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح على ظاهر خفيه. Ali radiallahu anh said, if religion was based on opinion, wiping the under part of the khuf would deserve to be wiped instead of the upper part. وقد رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح على ظاهر خفيه. And I seen the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam wiping over the upper part of his khuf. The other narration is كنت أرى, Ali radiallahu anh says, كنت أرى أن باطل القدمين أحق بالمسح من ظاهرهما حتى رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح ظاهرهما. I used to think that the bottom of the feet, meaning the khuf, were more deserving of being wiped than the top. Until I saw the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam wiping over the top of his khuf. Also, there's some athar that are weak. And the strongest of those, and I don't mean the strongest as in the strongest of the weak, but actually what appears to be authentic is one in Musannaf, Abdul Razzaq, the Ayyub as-Sikhtiyani said, I saw Al-Hasan al-Basri urinate, then wipe over the upper part of his khuf. And I saw, he wiped one time, and I saw the traces of his fingers on them. Why did they dispute this matter? Sababul khilaf. Ibn Rushd said the reason for the dispute is what appears to be conflict between the hadith on this issue. You have, first of all, the hadith in Ibn Majah, Sunan Ibn Majah, عن المغيرة ibn Shu'bah, that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam مسح أعلى الخف وأسفله. Mughira said the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went over the upper and the bottom of the khuf. That hadith appears to be in conflict with the hadith we just mentioned by Ali رضي الله عنه. لو كان الدين بالرأي لكان أسفل الخف أولى بالمسح من أعلاه وقد رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يمسح على ظاهر خفيه. If you analyze those four opinions that I gave you, the ulama took two routes in them. And that's a matter of usul, but I'll just mention it briefly. The ulama took two routes. One of the routes is they tried to find a way to combine between the hadith on this matter. Al-jam'u bayna al-hadithayn. Or others who gave precedent of one hadith over the other, which is called at-tarjih. In this particular situation, at-tarjih is the correct way, in the correct route, and it's given precedent. Why? Because the hadith of Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah that specified wiping the bottom of the khuf is not authentic. It's been classified as weak by Abu Zur'a and Al-Bukhari and Al-Tirmidhi and other ulama. And that sums up the selected view, al-rajih. Wiping over the upper part of the khuf is all you wipe. And the bottom is not part of wiping over the khuf or the socks. In addition to hadith Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah specifying the bottom of the khuf, that the Messenger ﷺ wiped over the bottom of the khuf, in addition to that being weak, this opinion gains more strength by the narration of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anh. If the religion was based on opinion, it would be more important to wipe the under part of the khuf rather than the upper part. There is a narration in Musannaf Abd al-Razzaq that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma wiped over the upper part of his khuf and the bottom. Even though it appears to be authentic, that narration is mawquf an Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, meaning it was Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma's actions. And it doesn't coincide with what is attributed to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam in Hadith Ali radiallahu anhu. So the clear hadith that does not accept ta'wil of the action of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma is given precedent. Another argument that the weaker opinion makes is that they said wiping is a replacement for washing. And washing the foot must encompass the entire foot, so wiping must encompass the entire foot as well. The response is there would be some room for such a rationale if there wasn't no proof. And we have the hadith of Ali radiallahu anhu on this matter. The next mas'ala. Do you wipe and start over the khuf, wiping the right, then you go to the left, or both of them together at the same time? The first opinion is the opinion of Al-Malikiyya and Al-Shafi'iyya, and one of two opinions of the Hanabila is that you wipe the right, then the left. Because wiping over the socks replaces washing them. And in washing them, you start with the right, then you go to the left. Here, the replacement, which is wiping over the socks or the khuf, follows the rule of the origin. What's the origin? The origin is washing the right, washing the right, and then the left. The hadith on starting with the right, we previously took it. حديث عائشة رضي الله عنها كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعجبه التيمن في تنعله وترجله وطهوره وفي شأنه كله. The Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم used to start with his right when wearing shoes, or when he combs his hair, or when he washes himself, and in doing everything else. And by the way, just so you know, the plural for khuf in Arabic, we say khufs when we're talking about it in English, but the proper plural for khuf in Arabic is khifaf. The third proof, they said there's no clear proof that feet should be wiped together, so it remains on the original status of starting with the right. There is a hadith related by Al-Mughira radiallahu anh, but it's not direct and clear on this detailed matter, so we stick to the origin of starting with the right. The second opinion is that you wipe the feet together. The Hanafiya and one of two opinions of the Hanabila, it's mentioned in Kashaf al-Qina'. They said the sunnah is to wipe over the right foot with the right hand, the left foot with the left hand together. Some of them, to support this matter, used wiping together. They used the hadith of Al-Mughira that's in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, where Al-Mughira radiallahu anh said, فَمَسَحَ عَلَيْهِمَا sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he wiped over them sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They said the hadith said wiped over them. فَمَسَحَ عَلَيْهِمَا. He didn't say wipe over the right and then the left. But that statement is general. It's broad and it's not clear. It could mean together, as what they claim and say, that he wiped over them together. But it could mean that he also, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wiped the right and then the left, فَمَسَحَ عَلَيْهِمَا. And the narrator is referring to the conclusion of the matter that he wiped over them. So it's not very clear. The second is that they use a hadith in Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah that's clearer and more explicit, supporting their view. And it's also on the authority of Al-Mughira, but its narration is weak. It's related as weak by the ulama of hadith. Also, they said it's similar to ears by qiyas. Ears are two different limbs, right and a left, each independent of the other, and they're wiped together. So the feet are the same in that they should be wiped together. And the response to that is that ears are part of the head. And the head with the ears are all considered one limb. And since they're part of the head, you don't need to take new water for them. You don't have to take new water for the ears. And they're wiped together without starting with the right and then the left. There's no starting with the right in any one limb, and the head, included the ears, are considered one limb. Al-Rajih on this mas'ala, selected view, is that it's a narrow dispute, very close. Had the hadith of Al-Mughira radiallahu anh been a little bit more explicit and clear, of course that would be the opinion. But it's not clear on the issue, so we remain on the origin of starting with the right on limbs that have two parts, just like we do in washing. And also due to the general ahadith of starting with the right. And note here that there's no basis for wiping the foot with both hands, as some people do or state. In another note, in Al-Insaf, and Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, you start with the top, the front of the toes, and you go back up to the sack, up to the leg, up to the beginning of the leg. They both recommended starting with the right, and they both said if one does that together, it's acceptable. But they said you should start with the right, and they also said if you go backwards from the leg back to the front of the toes, that's fine as well. The next mas'ala, do we repeat wiping over the khuf twice and thrice like we do in wudu? The first opinion is that it's not sunnah to go more than once. And that's the opinion of Al-Hanafiyyah and Al-Shafi'iyyah, and Imam Malik and the Hanabila also specified that it's disliked to go more than once. So basically, all four Imams agree that your khuf or your socks should be only wiped one time. And they said all the narrations pertaining to wiping stated wiped without mentioning twice or thrice. And the term wipe in those narrations applies or refers to only one time. They also said repeating the wiping turns it into washing. It's no longer wiping. And they also said the concept behind wiping over the khuf is to make matters easier. And that would coincide with wiping them only one time. Like wiping the cast. If you have a cast and you get to the part where your hand or your leg and you have a cast, you wipe one time over it. They said likewise the khuf in the socks. As clear as it may appear, there's a second opinion. In Musannaf Abd al-Razzaq, he related the opinion of Ata that one should wipe over the khuf twice or up to 3 times. They said that wiping the khuf is a replacement for washing the feet. And washing the feet is done up to 3 times. So wiping the khuf should be done up to 3 times because it's a replacement. It's a replacement how? Wiping over the khuf replaces the washing of the foot, so it takes the ruling of the origin of washing the feet. The response to that is that that's called analogy or qiyas, and that's qiyas in opposition of the text. So it's invalid and rejected qiyas. Also, replacement doesn't necessarily always take the ruling of the origin in all details all the time. And I'll give you some examples. First example, tayammum. Tayammum replaces wudu. Yet, we don't do that up to 3 times. And another example, we wipe only over the top of the khuf. Yet washing must encompass the entire foot. So the correct opinion, it's very clear what the 4 Imams agreed on, and it's that the feet or the khuf should only be wiped one time, and it's disliked to go over that. It's only once, because it was not confirmed that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam went over that. And just like they narrated that the Messenger's acts sallallahu alaihi wasallam in washing was twice and thrice, they did that many hadith in wudu. They would have related the same if he went beyond once when he wiped over the khuf sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The general overrule also is that there's no repetition in limbs that are wiped. The next mas'ala. The khuf or socks must be pure. Shafi'iyya and their ulama, like in Nawawi and the Hanabila, stated that there's ijma' that the khuf's origin must be pure. What do we mean by origin here? They can't be made of something impure like the leather of a dog or swine or of something najis. That leads to the next issue. What about when some external najasa or impurity touches or falls on a khuf or socks? The first opinion is the opinion of Al-Malikiyya and Al-Shafi'iyya. You can't wipe over khuf or socks that have najasa on them. Nawawi said you can't make salah with it, so you can't wipe over it. The second opinion is the opinion of Al-Hanabila. They said you can wipe over a khuf or socks that have najasa on them. The wudu itself is valid. That's the point. However, when you go to make salah, you wiped on them, they had najasa on them, your wudu is valid according to that opinion. When you go to perform your salah, you can't perform the salah except after washing or taking the najasa off or taking them off. And the rajih is the wudu is valid if you wipe over khuf tainted with najasa, but you can't perform the salah unless you clean it or take it off. Najasa on a khuf doesn't deprive water from reaching the parts that one needs to wash or wipe. So it's accepted. Now when salah comes, he needs to take it off or clean it. Because of the hadith that's in Musnad Ahmad and Abu Dawood and Al-Hakim and Al-Darimi. بينما رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي بأصحابه إذ خلع نعليه فوضعهما عن يساره فلما رأى ذلك القوم ألقوا نعالهم فلما قضى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاته قال ما حملكم على إلقائكم نعالكم قالوا رأيناك ألقيت نعليك فألقينا نعالنا فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن جبريل أتاني فأخبرني أن فيهما قذرا وقال إذا جاء أحدكم إلى المسجد فلينظر فإن رأى في نعليه قذرا أو أذى فليمسحه وليصلي فيهما. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was leading prayer. You can look up the hadith if you're trying to write it later on. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in leading the salah, took off his shoes and placed them to his left side. The Sahaba behind him took off their sandals or shoes as well. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "What made you remove your sandals?" They said, "We saw you take off yours, so we took off ours." The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Jibril came to me and he informed me that there was najasa on them." So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that when one wants to pray with his shoes, he should examine them. And if he sees filth on them, he should wipe it and then pray in them. A mas'ala. And that is a note, more of a note. Wiping over a khuf is only for matters of minor impurity. Invalidating wudu by major impurity, like relationship with a wife, one must take off the khuf, and you can't wipe over them to renew the ghusl as part of the ghusl. Al-Shafi'i and Nawawi and Ibn Qudama related in ijma' that wiping over the khuf is only when breaking wudu with matters of minor purification. Musannaf Abd al-Razzaq, Zir ibn Hubaysh al-Asadi asked Safwan ibn Assal about this matter. Safwan in his response said, the Messenger ﷺ used to command us when we were traveling not to take off our shoes for 3 days and nights except for matters of major impurity, and not to do so on the matters of minor impurity like urinating, passing water, or sleeping. And the hadith is also in Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, and Musnad Ahmad, and Ibn Khuzaymah. With this, I think we'll stop. Jazakum Allahu khair. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.